Hey, what's up, everybody? Hope you're well. This is Patrick Ingram with the Pause Life of Patrick, checking back in with you to just get you up to speed of what I've been up to over these past couple of months. So, this summer, well, officially now we're in fall, so happy fall, but this summer has been so busy. And this fall, I have some new updates I'd like to share with you, probably in another video, but today I want to talk a little bit more about what I just have been up to over these past couple of months. Summertime has been really busy for me. I was out doing a lot of outreach and engagement with the organization I work with, but more specifically, I have been traveling. So I went out to Arkansas to conduct a training around individuals experiencing homelessness and how to provide prep to them. And that was at the 2024 Encompass conference in Arkansas. So spent a couple of days there, really connected and made some new, friendships, and more importantly, just learned a little bit more about what HIV and syphilis and other STIs look like in Arkansas. And I can say one of the things I took away was, just with the limited resources that Arkansas has, the amount of passion in the work that organizations really do in Arkansas. And so that only inspired me to come back and just tell the organization I was previously working with. I'll catch you up to speed with that in a later video. But just coming back and sharing, if the South is doing all this stuff, what are we doing, right? What are we doing with all of our resources if the South is doing all of this great work with very serious limitations? So what's in Arkansas? Additionally, I spent some time earlier in the summer, probably around closer to springtime, in Charleston at the ADAP Advocacy Association conference, and we talked a lot about long-acting injectables and prescription drug affordability boards. I'll put some information in the description and in this video, so you can just jump on and see a little bit more about that. But long story short, prescription drug affordability boards are being deployed to try to make medications more affordable. But one of the things we're not really talking about is how do we make sure that individuals living with HIV and other conditions that require medications have access to the board without any kind of conflict of interest and can vote and make decisions as advocates and individuals who are impacted by these situations. And two, how is 340B revenue rebate had in this? Like, what's that in, what does that take? What's in consideration with the 340B revenue rebate when we think about, if we're charging medications too low to make them more affordable, how does that impact rebate dollars? And how does that impact organizations that rely on those rebate dollars to really provide services? So a lot happening there, but I hope to be able to have maybe an interview soon with somebody who's doing this work on prescription drug affordability boards and can talk a little bit more eloquently about this issue. It's something I'm getting caught up to speed with, and more importantly, I'm just not going to really talk a lot on, but I've been a part of that meeting and learn a little bit more about that at the ADAP Advocacy Association's Fireside Chat series, which I was really appreciative to the board and individuals for inviting me out there. And so the most biggest event that I think happens every year that everybody in the HIV world just is excited to be a part of is the United States Conference on HIV. This year it was held in New Orleans, Louisiana. Coincidentally, New Orleans was the first major HIV-related conference I went to years ago. And that was the place where I got introduced to new friends and colleagues, and more importantly, connections. And it really cemented the work that I'm doing today and the projects I've been a part of. And, I was gracefully, and I'm just completely blessed and thankful to the NMAC board, and more importantly, individuals within that organization, Paul Kawada, the CEO, and their deputy directors, and staff that just really took the time and effort to read through the scholarships applications. I submitted for a scholarship, and just the hard work they did, and just vetting and reading those scholarships. And I'm just thankful that NMAC extended a scholarship for me to be able to have a room for 2 nights, get a stipend, but more importantly, have access to the conference. Also, shout out to the Youth and AIDS projects for their work as well. It allowed space for me to be able to have a little Minnesota, delegation there, and it was really nice to be alongside those colleagues. So the conference was a week long. Coincidentally enough, at the conference, we contended with a hurricane. So we landed, found out a hurricane was coming, and found out they weren't canceling this event. And so just spent the first night, the second night, they're actually at like a little party and like had a cocktail hour where we had music and we were able to reconnect with one another, catch up and see how things were going. And so that was amazing. And I think throughout the entire conference, one of the things that I really wanted to do, and I talked about in my essay for scholarship, was have connection. In the South, um, there's a lot of connection, there's a lot of engagement. But I think one of the things that I miss in the Midwest that's not in the South is, a common goal. I think Minnesotans specifically are extremely siloed. I think there's a lot of white folks in positions that make decisions. And because of that, Black folks that are really intentional about doing this work are a lot of times silenced. And if they pull a Shirley Chisholm and show up with their folding chair to the table, a lot of times they're pushed away. And it's all in, it's a lot of people who are claiming that they're liberal and claiming that they're really intentional about this work, and they don't realize how harmful they are to Black people specifically. But I think what I really appreciate about USCHA is that I was able to reestablish and make connections. I met awesome people in the Midwest that are doing amazing work, and we're had some conversations about potentially having a conference in the Midwest and doing some other fun things. And so I think that was all pretty exciting, to really be able to start having serious discussions around. And I think the other thing is just more importantly, just being able to hear about the stories and experiences of people in the South, and more specifically, learning a little bit more about like how we can apply some of those practices that are happening in the South in the Midwest. And so, I think it was just an amazing experience to just be able to be back in that space. There were amazing sessions. I think I really appreciated the conversations around engaging with your legislature, doing a level of collaborative and cooperative community engagement to really move the work forward. And I really appreciate listening sessions with PASHA, the Presidential Advisory Council on HIV and AIDS. And, for me, another thing I really appreciated was just having that downtime to just build new connections, share a little bit more about the work I'm doing, and learning more about what others are doing. I think that for me is what was most important, because I found out there's some really awesome people in the Midwest that are just doing great things for Black folks, specifically African American, and I will say like Black and brown folks, so African American and Latina folk. And I didn't know. I mean, there were things happening in Minnesota, that like meetup groups and things like that I didn't know that were happening. So I just really appreciate the thoughtfulness of the NMAC leadership to extend the scholarship to me, and I really look forward to other opportunities to engage. I think I've been to a lot of conferences, and I think I think in a video I've talked a little bit about this, but the HIV field it's a tough field. A lot of times as a young person living with HIV, pharmaceutical and industry partners will basically bring you on board to be a part of campaigns. You have groups and fellowship groups that bring you on to be a part of like leadership development and things of that sort. But once you age out, a lot of times that's it. The things that we had available to us as young people, like the Youth Scholars Program, or which is now I think the Next Gen program. I think those are all amazing things, and I think one of the things that we um, talked about was how we miss those things. And so, if you're a young person, if you're living with HIV, you're really passionate about HIV work, please apply to those NMAC scholarships in those programs, because it's really important that we really think about the next generation of leaders in this work. Again, even at 35, it's my halfway point, I would think. I mean, I'm an adult now. I mean, I think I got to start, and even in my own work, I'm starting to look at younger people too. Like, how do I bring up other people behind me? So it's something to think about. And I think one of the things that I can also see about some of these spaces were that there are cliques. There are kind of like like kind of groups that essentially have been traumatic to me, or been harmful to me, and they've done some things that have been really hurtful to me. And so coming back into these spaces and having to navigate around those people was also an interesting dynamic. I think for me, I just really appreciate the friends I came into this conference with, the friends I made at this conference, but more specifically, my growth as a person, just recognizing harm and being able to stay clear of it, but more importantly, not being triggered as much by what triggered me in the past. Who would have known that somebody who refused to wear a tie, and refused to meet the standards of others and basically assimilate into um, an expectation to do what I'm doing now. And so I think, all of that just speaks to a level of growth. I think it speaks to a level of inner work that's been done. But I think coming back into these conference spaces um, has allowed for me to be really positioned to just keep going, keep growing. And I think I'm not going to lie, as a very well-known introvert, a lot of these spaces that are really built for like type A people can be a little bit overwhelming. And I can say, if you ever go to a conference, especially like USCHA, pace yourself. I mean, I think it's a lot of great information. It's a lot of great opportunities to connect, but it can be overwhelming. It can be like a sensory overload. So just take care of yourself and make sure that you're grounded and you're drinking water and you're resting. Because even outside of sessions, you are going to be out. You are going to be engaging with the people that you're meeting. And that's what we did. New Orleans was no different. We were out in those streets and it was an amazing time. I can't tell you how many times I just had a moment of thankfulness to just be around people that are also serious about this much important work that we do. Um, I will say one of the things that I appreciate around USCHA is just it's a week of love. It's a week of visibility. It's a week of opportunity, and more importantly, it's a hub of connection. It's a hub of fellowship opportunities, and more importantly, it's a hub of information exchange. I can't tell you how many business cards I gave out, how many I received, but more importantly, how many people I like shared my social media with. And I think one of the things I really value is the opportunity to be able to reach out to somebody in Philly and bounce off information, or if I hear about something in Philly, share that resource, or be available if someone wants to connect. And so I think these conferences really allow for that to happen, and just grateful for NMAC for year after year continuing to put on amazing conferences with great content. It was dope that Big Frida came out and did a multitude of like performances throughout the week, and I really appreciate just the thoughtfulness of centering culture, essentially centering culture in the programming. Can't tell you how many times I really appreciated uh, education around Louisiana culture, bringing information around the Latina community into the fold on the last day of the conference, and then in between, just talking about different pieces of the South. It's just an amazing thing. And many of you don't know, but I was a part of a project called Positive Spin. If you go to hiv.gov and look for Positive Spin, you'll see it. But I even got a chance to be connected with folks like Ken Like Barbie, an individual who got me into this work and really motivated me to start doing my own thing. And I just really appreciate people like him still doing this work after all of this time and still being excited about it. What that does for me, it makes me excited to continue this work. So, needless to say, it's been a really busy summer. Fall is here in Minnesota. There's a chill in the air. And, one of the things I am just grateful for this summer was just the opportunity to travel, the opportunity to be involved, and a lot of great work that's happening around the country, and being able to fellowship and get myself out of a silo, because a lot of the work here in Minnesota is de-siloing, and that can be draining. So just thankful and grateful to be able to be in a space where I'm able to finally be with like-minded people who want to see the end of the HIV epidemic. I think a lot of people get into this work and they're just trying to make a check. I think a lot of people get into this work, they don't know how to decenter whiteness. And I think a lot of people get into this work, especially on the government end, because it's a good gig. You got a government job, you got a good pay, a good check, you got good benefits. If you're in the right space, you got a good pension. And so a lot of people just, to some extent, I'm going to name it, use their identity to be able to get into these spaces, but aren't intentional about the work. And one of the things I'm going to talk about in another video was really talking through how you take care of yourself in those situations. I've just gone through a similar process where I'm around people who aren't intentional about the work, aren't intentional about community, and individuals like myself who pull up a damn folding chair were essentially pushed out. And how do you take care of yourself? How do you navigate trauma when you're dealing with non-people of color, being out to get you? So I hope to be able to share some of those experiences with you. And more importantly, use this platform going forward to really share my updates with you and how things are going. I know folks have been asking how my Cabenuva has been going. It's been great. My next injection is in November. I love it. There's a lot of freedom with it, the long-acting injectable medication that I think is amazing. And so I definitely say anybody who's interested in long-acting injectables, please take some time to look into it, consider it. I think one of the things that I think about is if you're taking other medication, just think about how you stay adherent to those. Because one of the things I've navigated as a larger issue is having to take my other medication that I take. And so that has been something that's been a little bit more difficult. With that being said, I'm going to wrap up, but it's so great to see y'all. And I look forward to continuing to share my journey. So thanks for being here. And if you haven't yet, click the bell for notifications and make sure that you subscribe to my channel. So take care. Have a good one, y'all. Bye.